And we are back. Man, I don't know. I think we talked about it on a few episodes before that might be like how we always intro. Well, it's not going to be how we always do it, but I feel like it's the natural thing to say every time I get in front of you guys, this microphone. Um, it's been interesting. I'm a day late, maybe a day and a half late from when I normally record or put this out. I've been a little busy the last few days. I had a few things that was pressing, and I had a huge meeting today, which was interesting. Uh, it could potentially shift what happens to and for my creativity, at least for the foreseeable future. So I'm partially excited about. I'm wholeheartedly excited about it. I was gonna say partially, but I'm definitely excited about it. And the possibilities it'll bring significant change if it were to come to fruition. So it's interesting times. With that said, we're gonna start this how we normally start this with an exercise in mindfulness, as we always do. Is just focus on our breath. 10 breaths starting now. Prefer your eyes closed. Now that we are here, I want to do something that we always do, which is uh, start you off with something to get your minds going, something to uh, get us kind of present in the moment. So the riddle I have for you, or the brain teaser, is: what is always on its way but never arrives? What is always on its way but never arrives? Um, Interesting times over the last few weeks. I think the theme of last week's episode and the theme for my last 3 weeks, 4 weeks have been, or has been, inspiration. How inspired I was. So much so that I didn't even want to be creative. And inspiration to this point, at least for me, has always been a huge part of creativity and the creative process. And I believe that they, in most cases, work in tandem. And there was nothing to have me believe otherwise up until the last few weeks. And this is kind of where my mind is in this particular moment. I'm starting to believe that after being this inspired and not feeling the need to be creative, I'm starting to question whether or not we actually do need inspiration to be creative. So the opposite of happening. If I can be so inspired that I'm not creative, can the reverse of that be true as well? Meaning, an uninspired person can be uber creative. And that is the question that I'm kind of asking myself, and going through the process of trying to understand and answer. But what does it mean when an uninspired person is in fact creative? Does that mean that you can do what I think is, what I believe is a skill, is to have creativity on demand? Whenever you need it, it's there. And we've had conversations before where we talked about how creativity is this erratic idea. It is all over the place. It's unpredictable. It is there's no real true pattern to creativity. But then through our conversation, we realized like there's ways to create spaces that are conducive or enable creativity, and which almost counters this idea that hey, as much as it is erratic and sporadic and uncontrollable, it can be available to you on demand. If in fact these other ideas are true, like these other theories are true. And the theory in question right now is that an uninspired person can in fact be creative. I remember I study a lot of the idea of human creativity in people who are kind of actively living within their creativity. And I wish I could remember his name. I think he's an artist for the New Yorker. So he doodles and he's a cartoonist. I think he might be. I'm sure if I search my notes, I can figure out his name. But one of the things he said was, especially for the individuals who actually have to, who their livelihood is dependent on their ability to be creative, meaning that they get paid for their creativity. He had mentioned that, I don't have the luxury of being waiting to be inspired or waiting to be motivated. I just have to get up and work. I just have to get up and be creative. And that can be true for a lot of us creatives, and which kind of entertains the idea of creativity on demand. And what does that actually look like? I think if this phenomenon is true, which I think it is, because I've lived it, like for the most part, I've had to I've been in a situation where my livelihood was dependent on my ability to be creative, and that is how I ate and how I continue to eat. And as much as there were opportunities for me to practice or prepare for the time when my creativity was needed, a lot of the times I went into the situation without expectations or without preparation, and I trusted my ability to be creative in that particular moment. And I think at that point I realized that I had a skill, and the skill is not necessarily unique to me. I mean, there's this idea of a creative genius. As much as I would want to embrace that title, I don't think that it is unique to a certain set of individuals. I think that term is a byproduct of practice and refining of skill. I spent a lot of time challenging myself to be able to perform at the best of my abilities whenever my abilities are being requested. And the best way that I could say that I've been able to acquire such a skill set is purely off of working on my craft. And every opportunity that I have had to be creative, I took advantage of it. Even in moments where it wasn't required or mandatory, it's like it was almost like for the love of the game, for the love of the sport, for the love of creativity. I entertained any creative idea just because I wanted to challenge myself and put myself in that particular. I put those like constraints and an opportunity that was manufactured, just so I can kind of sharpen my creative skill set. And I don't know that there's one particular way to be able to do it. I think every creative over time kind of learns themselves. I think this is something that we talked about. You learn who you are. You learn what it takes to trigger your creativity, what it takes to bring it about. And I think it is important for us. I think there's a level of self-awareness that is attached to it. There's a certain level of just a belief in self, obviously. But again, I want to lean back in this idea of like just being self-aware. Like you have to know yourself. You have to know what it takes for you to get yourself in that particular moment. I'm a huge fan of Michael Jordan. I think I'm of the belief now that LeBron has surpassed him as the greatest of all time. And listen, I'm not going to debate you about it, especially not here. But in that same realm of idea, when we were talking basketball, I remember in previous occasions I brought up how basketball is a form of art and creativity. And if you ever watch Kyrie Irving play basketball, it is beautiful to watch. His ability, the things that he can do with a basketball in his hand, and the creativity that is showcased with that is remarkable. But I'm saying that just to for all of us to think of basketball as a form of creativity. And then here you have these two individuals who are considered the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan and LeBron James. There's a DVD that I used to watch when I was really young. It was called "Come Fly with Me." It was Michael Jordan's. It's a DVD around Michael Jordan and how he was on the court and his upbringing. It was a inspirational story, but in it, he talked about how he had to manufacture challenges in order for his prowess to show on his prowess to show on the court. He would create scenarios in his head to challenge himself because he knew it took that for him to overcome those challenges in the moment, right? So it was like these things were put in place, so it triggered his creativity. It's like, oh, I can showcase this skill easily without needing any external influence. I can create it myself. And I took from that. And I think I've been able to implement that and create almost like obstacles and challenges and constraints to be able to be creative and force myself into this creative zone that over time I've learned to channel without having to experience those things in the moment. I can almost create a moment of creative need at any given moment. The only thing I know that I could do this well too is just in any moment I can meditate and through mindfulness and get myself in a Zen-like state on demand. But it's interesting because once you get to the point that you can master your creativity in a way that it is available to you whenever, there's a certain level of confidence that comes with that. And there's also, I'm no longer in fear of going into a situation that I know that my creativity I'm going to be relying on my creativity. And again, this level of confidence came from past experiences, the fact that I survived these particular moments and I'm still here leaning on my creativity to get me through situations. But again, it is heavily it is a byproduct of practice. It is a byproduct of my mindset. It is a byproduct of experiences and success and failures that came from it, right? And there's different ways that you can hone your skills and make it available to you. I know different creatives do different things. Some people they do the writing technique where every day they challenge themselves to write something, creative thoughts. There is one thing in design when it comes to creativity, it's like adding time constraints to be able to solve particular problem. One of the most famous ones is the Italian word for tomato, pomodoro, I think it is, in the pomodoro technique, where you dedicate 25 minutes to solve a problem, and then you break after 25 minutes, maybe a 3 to 5 minute break, and you give yourself another 25 minutes, and you rinse and repeat the cycle until you ultimately solve the problem. In that 3 to 5 minute break, you do something completely different. You don't worry about the problem. It's almost like a reset and a starting over. But that's a technique that a lot of people use, especially designers, when they want to channel their creativity. I think I mentioned the psychological aspect of it. It's like it's less about, especially when I'm channeling my creativity. One of the things that I'm able to employ, and it's a psychological component, where if I know I have to be creative, I accept the fact that I'm not expected to be perfect. When I'm in creative mode, it's more in an experimental type of mode, as opposed to me being a perfectionist. And what that allows, it creates an environment where it's like, challenge yourself and allow yourself to fail, because even in that failure, there's a lesson trapped in there somewhere, right? And that allows me to easily be creative, because I know at the end of this, it's like I'm not being judged by the outcome, but more so it's just the process and allowing myself to go through the creative process. And I think that is important, that we refine our ability to channel our creativity. It is important that we understand that as much as creativity is a gift that we all receive as human beings, and it's innate to us, that gift can also keep on giving if you refine it. And then in that refinement, it becomes a skill. And when you sharpen that skill becomes a tool that is readily available to you at any given moment. And it gives you the ability to solve any problem on demand by leveraging your creativity. And I think that is my challenge to everybody who is hearing this. Start working on your skill and refining your skill, your creative skill, to the point that you're confident enough that you can call upon it on demand. And when you're able to do that consistently, and I want to emphasize the consistency here, and maybe there's an opportunity here to give a second reason why, or add to my belief why LeBron James is the GOAT over Michael Jordan. Again, I'm not going to debate you about this. But there was a noticeable peak in Michael Jordan's career. You can remember the height of his career. Whereas LeBron James has been consistently great. It's less about peaks and valleys, but more about just the consistency across his basketball career. I don't know how this ended up being a debate between LeBron and Michael Jordan in regards to who's the GOAT, but work on your craft. I want all of us to be able to not only channel our creativity, but for it to be an effective tool whenever it's channeled. And I want you to appreciate the level of confidence that comes along with that skill. But anyways, I feel like I'm talking a little bit more than I should right now. I want to end how we always start, right? Especially when it comes to the puzzle that opened us up at the start of this conversation. So the puzzle was, what is always on its way but never arrives? What is always on its way but never arrives? Tomorrow. Tomorrow is always on its way but never arrives. I am always happy to share space with you, share creative space with you. Thank you for being here. I hope that you continue to challenge yourself, challenge your creativity, hone in on that skill. And I wish that you're able to experience the joy and the satisfaction that comes from being able to channel it on demand. I will leave you how I always leave you. Go be great.